Hello world, you are once again welcome to Kodan's Academy, and this is Kodan's introduction to programming with Python, and I am Samuel Ando Boche. This week we are looking at functions and variables. You recall from the beginning of our course that we said that functions are like actions or verbs that the programming language may already know how to do. And these functions are also just like tools that exist already in the programming language, in this case the Python programming language, that are available for you and I, the developers, the coders or the programmers, to make use of them anytime within our code. What I have over here is my Visual Studio Code, also known as the VS Code. Now the Visual Studio Code is the text editor that we are going to use to write our Python codes. So you remember once again from the beginning of the course, you were told to download two softwares, being the Python interpreter and then the Visual Studio Code. The Python interpreter being the program that comes with the Python programming language, and then the Visual Studio Code also the program that we use to write the Python codes or instructions. So what I have over here is my Visual Studio Code, and then beneath the Visual Studio Code is my terminal, also known as the command line interface, or in Windows operating system we will say the command prompt. So before we can type any Python code, we must first create a Python file. So on the command line interface or on the terminal, let's type code hello.py. Now code hello.py is actually instructing the computer to create a file with the name hello.py. Now all Python files that we create must end with the extension .py. Now the .py extension actually tells the computer the kind of file we are creating, also instructing the computer on the kind of program it is supposed to use to open the file that we create. So all Python files are supposed to end with the .py extension, telling the computer that this is a Python file. So having typed code hello.py, let's press enter to create our first Python file. So if you type the code, then you should see the Python file that we created open with the name hello.py with a number and then a blinking cursor. Now the number indicating the line on which we are typing our Python code, and then the blinking cursor also telling or showing us where the code will appear when we type. So without you knowing any line of Python code, let's type this particular statement in Python. Print, open bracket, quotes, and then you could see that some of my thoughts were automatically completed by the text editor. These are features built into programs that are designed specifically to be used for programming or for coding. So when I type print, open bracket, quote, the rest of my thoughts were automatically completed by the text editor for me. So what I have typed over here is known as the print function. So the print function main purpose in life is to allow you, the developer or the programmer, to be able to print text or numbers onto the screen. The screen here, I mean the command line interface or on the terminal. So the print function's main purpose in life is to always allow you to be able to print whatever you want to print or to display whatever you want to display onto the screen. It turns out that those who developed the Python programming language, the print function to be specific, didn't know what you and I would want to print to the screen always. So they actually designed this print function to be able to take what is called a value. This value that the print function needs refers to a term in programming known as argument. Arguments are the values that we are supposed to give to these functions so that the function can actually make use of it in its operation. So over here, we are supposed to provide an argument to the print function. Now the print function says that if you want to print a test, or if you want to print any test, put those tests inside quotation mark. But if you want to print any number, don't put the number inside quotation mark. But we want to print hello world to the screen. And you all agree with me that hello world is actually not a number. It is a test. So therefore, we make use of what? Of the quotation, either single quotation or double quotation mark. So I have already typed my quotation over here. So inside the quotation mark, I put what is called hello world over there. The hello world you see inside the print function is what is known as the argument. So as I said earlier on, arguments are the values that you and I are supposed to provide for this function so that they can make use of it in their operation. So so this is our first Python program, and this program's main purpose in life is always to print hello world whenever we run it. So the question someone will ask is that, okay, so if this is our first Python program, then how do we run this program? You and I are familiar with running programs using what is called a graphical user interface, also known as the GUI. That is clicking on elements or clicking on buttons or icons here and there to launch our programs. But over here, we do not see such buttons or icons over here. So how do we actually run this Python program? Now, in running our Python program, we make use of what is called the command line interface. The command line interface, also known as the terminal. In some operating system, example like the Windows operating system, they refer to it as the command prompt. We having the graphical user interface that we use to run programs. The other interface that is also available is the command line interface. With the command line interface, we do not click on buttons or click on icons or any graphical user interface element, but we actually make use of text to interact or to instruct the computer to perform an action for us. So if we want to run our Python program, we will make use of what? Of the command line interface, that is the terminal, to actually tell the computer to run our program for us. So let's go back to the Visual Studio Code on the terminal. So far we have typed only one command. That is the command we type to create the Python file that we are using. So the next command we are going to type is Python and then the file name. So here the file name is hello.py. So whenever you want to run your Python program, always ensure that you type Python and then the file name continuous. So this command actually tells the computer that use the Python interpreter that we downloaded to run this particular file for me. So we give the file that we have created to the Python interpreter. And how do we actually give the file to the Python interpreter? That is by typing Python on the terminal, and then after that you continue with the file name. That is the reason why over here we type Python and then hello.py, hello.py being the file name in which we write our Python code. So before I run this particular command, I must also make sure that I have saved my code. Now, if you do not save your code, it will not work. So ensure that your code is saved. You can press Ctrl+S to save your code. So having done that, come back to the command line interface, and now I can press the enter key to kick my program running. So when I press the enter key, I should see hello world display on my screen or on my terminal. You and I have also heard that computers actually deal with what is called zeros and ones. But you agree with me that the code we have written over here, they are not zeros and ones. Print open bracket, quote hello world, quote bracket close is actually not zeros and ones. So the question is, how would the computer be able to understand print open bracket, quote hello world, quote bracket close, which are not in zeros and ones. Now, for the computer to be able to understand what we have written over here in the human format, the computer needs what is called the Python interpreter. That is the reason why we downloaded the Python interpreter. So as long as there is a language called the Python programming language, there is also a program known as the Python interpreter. Now this Python interpreter's sole purpose in life is to actually take the code we write with the Python programming language, convert it into the instruction, that is the zeros and ones the computer can understand in order to be able to run it. So that is the main reason why even on the terminal, when we wanted to run our Python code, we had to type the name Python, telling the computer that, computer, please make use of the Python interpreter to run this particular file for me. Yes, so this is our first Python program. I'm very excited about this particular program. Whenever we are typing our Python instructions, we must always end our statement in the way the programming language expects it, or in the way the Python interpreter expects it. Now, if we do not complete our thought in the way the programming language expects or the Python interpreter expects, we are going to develop programs full of errors. So what do I mean by this? Whenever we are typing our Python code, we must follow what is called syntax. Now, syntax are like the rules that govern the programming language that is being used. So if you do not follow proper rules, you will end up not completing your thoughts in the way the programming language was designed. And with this, the Python interpreter will not be able to understand your code in order to run it for you. So whenever we are typing our Python codes, we must ensure that we complete all our thoughts as the programming language demands, or as the Python interpreter demands. Other than that, we will end up writing codes full of errors and our program will actually not run. So let me deliberately break or remove the closing bracket, not completing my thoughts in the way the programming language expects. So having saved this code again, let me go back to the terminal, type Python and then the file name hello.py, and then run my code. So you could see that the interpreter has shown to me what is called syntax error. And then when you look over here, you could also see that it is trying to point to me the line on which the error has occurred. So here pointing to me that line 1, indeed the error is happening on line 1. And then the Python interpreter also tries as much as possible to point to me the kind of error I have developed. So here syntax error telling me that I am not following proper rules as the programming language demands. And then even tries to point to me that my bracket was never closed. So if we do not complete our thoughts in the way the programming language is actually designed, we are going to develop problems or errors or mistakes. Now, the errors or the mistakes that we develop inside our program also refer to a term in programming known as bug. Bug are the mistakes or the errors that occur inside our code that you and I, the developers or the programmers, are supposed to look for them in order to fix them. The process of looking for these errors or mistakes inside the code to fix them also refers to another term known as debugging. Debugging is the process of finding errors or mistakes in our program in order to fix them or to correct them. Now let's go back to the VS Code, bring back the closing bracket, save our code again, go back to the terminal, and then type Python hello.py, run the code again, and now we are back on track. So we should see hello world printing once again for us. Now this is also telling us that we humans, sometimes we do not actually care about the errors we make when we are typing messages, either on WhatsApp or on any other platform at all. We humans, we can actually figure them out and then say, oh, this is actually just a typo, ignore it, and then it is not actually a big deal. But with programming, even if you make any minor mistake in your code, the programming language or the Python interpreter in this case is actually going to take you on, deal with you. So it will not permit you to even make minor mistakes that you and I humans, we may just overlook them. So always our thoughts must be completed in the way the programming language actually demands. So whenever I run this program, it will always print hello world to me. So it turns out that this program is always printing hello world to me. So let's modify this program, makes it a little bit interactive. Instead of printing hello world to us, let us develop a program that prints something like hello Samuel, hello David, hello Johnson, hello Essie or Amma for us. So let's make this particular program a little bit interactive. Now, in order for us to be able to do this, it turns out once again that Python programming language has also provided us with another function called the input function. The input function's also sole purpose in life is to allow the user of our program to be able to type a value into our program so that whatever we would want to use that particular value for within the program, we can use it. So when it runs, it pauses when it gets to where the input function is, permits the user of the program to type a value, and then after that it continues to read. So permits me to push the print quote, the print open bracket, quote hello world, quote bracket close down, and then on top we type input. And because the function, we must end it with the bracket open and bracket close. When you read the Python documentation provided for this particular input function, it turns out that the input function takes what is called the argument. So we just mentioned arguments, that they are values that we provide to functions so that the function can actually make use of it inside its operation. So the input function also takes what is called an argument, and this argument main purpose is to actually prompt the user, telling them the kind of value that they are supposed to provide. So it's a form like providing a description on the kind of data the user of our program is supposed to provide. So since we are taking the user's name, let's type what is your name? What is your name? The reason why I push the print open bracket quote hello world quote bracket close down is that when the program is running, Python actually runs from top to down. So it starts from line 1 before it moves to line 2 to line 3 if we have such lines. So starting from top, it runs in sequence. So taking every instruction, it moves to the next instruction, runs it, moves to the other instruction in that order. And then looking at how we want this program to behave, we must first of all take the person's name before we can print the person's name on the terminal. So that is the reason why I put the print statement down, so that we can actually take the user's name before we can print to the user. Let me make use of this simple analogy. Now think of the input function as you sending someone to buy something for you. So anything that you want that particular person to buy for you, the person can actually buy it for you. So after sending the person to get whatever you want the person to get for you, when the person returns, the person must hand over whatever you sent him or her to get for you. So when the person is handing over what you asked the person to get for you, you must also stretch your hand to actually receive what the person is returning back to you. In programming, what the person returns back to you refers to a term known as return value. So whatever the person that you sent to get for you will return back to you refers to a term in programming known as return value. Now that is how the input function also work. So the input function here is like sending the input function to go and get a name for you, and when it gets the name, it must return the name back to you. So in order for you to receive the name, you must also stretch your hand to receive it. So the input function also returns what? Back to us the values or whatever the user will type. So in order to receive what the input function will return to us, we use what is called variables. So variables are like the containers we create inside our program to store values or data that we will need as the program runs. So permit me to, before the input function, let me use a variable name equal input. So whatever I have or whatever the input function will return to us is taken and then put inside the variable known as what? Called name. So we make use of variables. We create variables inside our program to store what? Values that the program will need as it runs. Another operator you are seeing over here is the equal sign. Now the equal sign in mathematics, so we use equal sign in mathematics to demonstrate that two sides are what? Are equal. Or we use equal sign in mathematics to actually prove that the right hand side and then the left hand side are equal. In programming, the equal sign is not referred to as the equality that we know in mathematics, but it is referred to as what? As an assignment operator. So the equal to here takes whatever we want to put inside the container and then actually put it into the container. So this equal sign we see over here, it is not checking that the name over here is actually equal to the input. That is how it works in mathematics. But here we are actually using it to assign whatever value the input function is going to return to us into the container that has been named as what? As name, or into the container that has been labeled as what? As name. So that is how the equal sign is being used over here. So in order for me to print to the user the name that they will type, allow me to erase the hello world over here, leaving hello only inside the quotation mark. Now the print function can actually take multiple arguments. So not just only one argument that we can pass to the print function, but we can also pass multiple arguments to the print function. All that you are supposed to do is to separate this word argument with a comma. So I put a comma after the hello and then introduce my variable name over there. Mind you, we don't put the variable names inside the quotation mark. So someone would think that we have to put the name inside the quotation mark. Let me put the name inside the quotation mark to see what will actually happen. Back to the terminal. Having saved our Python code, we go to the terminal and then we type Python hello.py, and then when we run, yes, it prompted for our name. I type my name Samuel, press enter, and then instead of printing our name, that is the name Samuel for me, you can see hello name. So we don't put variable names inside quotation mark, either single or double quotation mark. So let me remove it from the quotation mark, pass my comma here, and then the name or the name of the variable comes afterwards. Let me run this version of the program Python hello.py. Press enter, prompt me for my name. I type Samuel, press enter again, and now I see hello Samuel on the screen. So we have made a very great progress so far. So we know two functions: the input function stopping the program, permitting the user to type something, and then after typing and then pressing the enter key, the program continues to run. Let me rerun this program again, passing to it a different name. So Python hello.py, what is your name? And let me pass David to it. When I press enter, it prints hello David. Let me run it for the last time. Passing the name Amma to it, and when I press enter, it prints what? Amma. So this is an interactive Python program. So now that this version of our program is running, let us create another program that is able to add two numbers for us. So back to the terminal, we type code, and then let's name this particular file as calc.py. Remember we said all our Python files are supposed to end with the extension .py. So having typed code calc.py, I press enter to create a new Python file. So we have the name of the file, line 1. And now we can what? Type x equal to y equal 3. Now you must also understand that we don't use only variables to receive whatever the input function will return to us. We can actually save data directly inside variables in our code, and that is what I am doing over here. X is my variable name. Equal sign, we saw that it is known as the assignment operator that actually picks the data that we want to save. In this case, the number 2 over here, put it inside the variable x for me. In programming, when creating variables, there are rules that we are supposed to follow. Now, these rules that we are supposed to follow when creating our variables are known as what? Variable declaration rules. So variable declaration rules are the rules that governs how variables are supposed to be created, or how variables are created. Now, the first rule when creating a variable is that variable names can only contain letters, that is from capital A to Z or from small letter A to Z. That is the reason why over here, that is why you could see that I have made use of what? Of X as my variable name here, and then Y also as a variable name. So variable names can actually be letters, combination of letters, or even just a single letter. But it turns out that though we can use single letters, these letters we tend to use as variable names do not actually give meaning as to the kind of data we are saving inside the variable. So it is generally acceptable that whatever variable we create, we must ensure that we give proper variable names that actually represent the kind of data we are putting inside that variable. So X over here, though it is a valid variable name, but it turns out that it doesn't give clear meaning as to the kind of data it is what? Storing or saving for us. So the next rule says that we can make use of what? Of digits inside our variable name. But these digits are supposed not to begin the variable name. So allow me to propose we create another variable known as what? Num1. So we can create a variable known as num1. Then 1 indicating that we have made use of what? Of digits. So we can use digits inside our variable name, but this digit cannot begin the variable name. So therefore we cannot have one num. No, this is invalid variable name. So the number can actually be anywhere inside the what? The variable name, just that it is supposed not to start the variable name. So I can have num1 equal 20. This is valid variable name. The next rule says that apart from the symbol underscore, we cannot use any other symbol existing inside our variable name. So I can create a variable called first underscore name. This is a valid variable name. So apart from the underscore symbol, you cannot use any other word symbol inside your variable name. In Python programming language, it is only acceptable to make use of the underscore inside your variable name. So I can have what? First underscore name equal, and then I'll pass Samuel. Put it inside quotation mark because it is what? A test. You could see that the numbers, I didn't put the numbers inside quotation mark. We have already spoken about this. Variable names cannot start with a number. Then the next rule is that variable names are case sensitive. Variable names are case sensitive. What does this actually mean? Now you could see that we have a variable x which is in small letters, small letter x. So I can create another variable capital X. So this small x you see and then the capital X you see over here are two different variables. Though we pronounce them the same x and x, but one is in capital letter and the other one is in small letter. So when we mention case sensitivity, this is what it means. Though the letters are the same, pronounced the same, but one is what? Uppercase and one is lower case. When I create a variable age and then I come down and then create another variable age. Now the first age you see over there is different from the age on line 6. So the age on line 5 starting with capital letter A, G, E is different from the age on line 6. This is what we refer to as variable names are case sensitive. And then the last rule is that we cannot also make use of Python keywords. Now the Python programming language comes with some variables or keywords that have special meaning in the language. Now all these words, names that are having special meaning in the programming language cannot be used as variable names. Example, we cannot create a variable name known as what? Print. So a variable name cannot be print. Why? Print is having a special meaning in the programming language. We cannot also have a variable name known as what? Input. Input is also having a special meaning in the Python programming language. We have so many of them. We cannot have a variable name as while. While is also having a special meaning in the Python programming language. As well, we cannot have a variable name called if. If is also having a special meaning in the programming language. So all these words, names or keywords that are having special meaning in the Python programming language can actually not be used as variable names. So we must avoid them. So having looked at all these variable declaration rules, let's proceed to create our calculator to add two numbers together. So now we know that when using or creating variables, we must use meaningful names. So permit me to erase x and y and then use number 1 equal 2 and then number 2 equal 3. And then when we come down, we can add these two numbers together, and because we are saving them inside variable, we just call these numbers by their variable names. So I can create another variable known as what? Add equal number 1 plus number 2. And then in order for us to be able to see the result, we can make use of the print function to print the result, which will be saved inside the add variable. And now when I go back to the terminal, we type what? Python, and then the name of the file, in this case, it is what? Calc. So calc.py, press enter, and then I should see what? 5 printed on the screen. So we know that 2 plus 3 is actually equal to what? To 5. But whenever we run this program, you will all agree with me that it will always print 5 to the screen. So let's make this particular calculator more interactive, just like how we made the Hello World file interactive. So instead of hard coding the numbers 2 and 3, why don't we make use of the input function, giving the user of the program the permission to be able to type the numbers he or she want to add together. So we know how to make use of the input function already. So let me erase this line And then number 1, instead of being equal to 2, let's make it equal to the input function. And then let's provide the argument enter first number. And then we can make use of the input function as many times as we want. So number 2 also equal to the input function, and then we provide the argument enter second number. Yes. And now here we can now create our variable add to add the two numbers together, number 1 plus number 2. In order for us to see the result, we have to what? To actually make use of the print function, passing to it the add variable. Now we can actually totally omit line 1. So instead of doing add equal number 1 plus number 2, we can directly pass number 1 plus number 2 to the print function, and it will work also. Having created this version of our program, let's go back to the terminal. Type Python, pass to it the calc file, that's calc.py, press enter, and now we can see enter first number. The first number is 2, press enter again, and then we move on to the next line, and then we type the next number, which is 3, and then when I press enter, we all know that 2 plus 3 is supposed to give us what? 5. So when I press enter, we should see our 5 on the terminal. So press, and then why am I seeing 23 instead of 5? It's 2 plus 3, not 5. 2 plus 3 is actually, I think it's 5. Or what is happening here? But here we are seeing 23. So it is either the program is deceiving us, or it is either I have deceived you, or your math class has actually deceived you. Now this will be the end of today's lesson. Next week when we meet, we shall actually dive deeper to look at the reason why instead of seeing 5, the interpreter is actually showing us what? 23. And I will also as well leave this problem for you to actually solve it. But if you are not able to solve it, that is actually fine. When we meet next week in class, we will actually look at how to handle this program. This is Kodan's introduction to programming with Python, and I am Samuel Ando Boche.